Globalization, contrary to some beliefs, predominantly began in the age of exploration. Over the past several centuries, the imperialistic means and motives that led Europeans to traverse the globe was one of the first forms of global communication and exchange. Throughout the video, we will discuss the influence that imperialism has had politically, socially, and economically, and the historical legacies that have shaped various countries. By the end of this topic, you will have received more information to support your opinion on globalization.
The extension of a country's power over another territory through diplomacy or military force is known as imperialism. There are two types of imperialism: old and new. Old imperialism refers to the exploration that occurred from the 1500s to the early 1800s. During this era, Eurocentrism, wealth, and ships enabled Europe to colonize the Americas. In order to protect pre-existing trade routes and to establish opportunities for exchange, journeys were embarked upon. Through the technological advancements of guns, germs, and steel, Europeans had a strong advantage over indigenous people. An immoral interaction that occurred in old imperialism is the triangular trade. Over the transatlantic ocean, slaves were traded. From the Americas, crops were traded to European kings, who then provided manufactured goods to colonies in Africa. This then permitted African slaves to be shipped to North America and sold for gold.
The motives associated with old imperialism are the three G's: God, gold, and glory. Referred to white man's burden, Europeans believed that it was their duty as Christians to save the souls of others in the name of Christ. They converted all individuals to Catholicism, and those who resisted were executed. As regards to gold, European explorers utilized the resources present in established economies, sending valuable metals and gems back to their home country as an incentive for the king and queen to support future expeditions. This increased the nation's wealth and power. It refers to the power and celebrity status that explorers desired. On expeditions, the more land they discovered meant the greater recognition.
New imperialism is the extension of power over individuals. Instead of trading posts, this form of imperialism capitalizes on profit. A prominent form of new imperialism is by transnational corporations. By utilizing resources in foreign countries, TNCs gain wealth and power much like the Europeans did centuries ago. In this concept, Western powers aim to conquer parts of Africa and Asia due to the economic desire of new resources and markets.
Economic realities influenced by imperialism refer to the production and exchange of goods on a global scale. In reference to old imperialism, exploration for gold greatly increased the home country's wealth, strengthening their economy. Development in technology and communication allowed for advancements to gain more land. In new imperialism, commerce strengthened economic ties between many countries. Social realities in reference to old imperialism include the assimilation of indigenous group. This topic will be expanded upon in the historical legacies section of the video. In new imperialism, culture exchange has contradictingly intensified as modern society embraced the differences of others. Politically, imperialism has contributed to the governing and decision-making processes in society. Old imperialism, Eurocentrism enabled explorers to politically control the colonies through taxes and government regulations, affecting the way they see issues and altering their beliefs through Eurocentric views. Positive advantages result in new imperialism as governments strive for interconnectedness and global exchange.
A pro of imperialism is the advances in technologies. This includes vaccinations, weaponry, and transportation. A con is the diseases such as the Black Plague brought to North America and the loss of culture and indigenous groups.
A globalist, an individual who believes in globalization yet recognizes issues, would say that although there have been questionable processes, the world eventually became interconnected because of imperialism.
A legacy is something from the past that we still see the effects of today. Throughout history, there have been both positive and negative legacies that have changed the world. A positive legacy is the minimization of gender inequalities as women began to work in industries where men were predominant. In order to sustain economies and support the war, women manufactured ammunition and built ships.
A negative legacy that the government is still making amends for today is the conforming process of British rule in Canada. As Europeans colonized Canada, believed the assimilation of First Nations to be inevitable. The Indian Act was first passed by the Canadian Parliament in 1876 to ban First Nations' way of life. In order to erase cultural differences, Europeans established residential schools to take the Indian out of the child. In these schools, children were separated from their culture and experienced both physical and mental abuse. It was here that many indigenous languages and traditions were lost.
The final legacy we will address is British rule in India. Depending on your perspective, individuals may see this legacy as both positive and negative. As the British expanded their empire into India, they created a railway that allowed fast and easy access. The development of the railway was greatly influenced by the large quantities of metals and spices available in Indian markets. A benefit of this railroad is that it developed India's economy by establishing trade connections with European superpowers. A consequence is that thousands of people were killed on the trains due to the mass of people wanting to travel on it. Imperialism, as described in this video, is influenced by both the economic interest of nations but also by the self-interest of individuals. Watch episode 3 to further educate yourself on this topic.